Hello and welcome. My name is Dale Richards, CEO of AppCreative, an app development company on the Silicon Slopes of Utah. We're on a mission to build apps that change the world. If you want to build apps, grow your SaaS business, and make money doing cool software entrepreneur-related stuff, start now by subscribing and hitting the bell. Today's special guest is Sean Bair, CEO and founder of Zoohoo. As a seasoned business entrepreneur and software developer, Sean helped to develop Nouri, previously known as Circles. It's a CRM which helps its users maintain their social health. So it's kind of like a CRM for your personal connections. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest updates and videos. And now, the interview.
Zoohoo is the company. It's like alphabet. And then Circles is the app. Circles your CRM technically, because what happens is people go into the App Store and type in Circles and like downloading other people's apps.
Right.
And we're going to go through a brand change, and we're going to be renamed to Nouri for Nourish.
Oh, okay.
So
how do you spell that?
Nourish without the SH.
Okay, so Nouri.
Correct.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
So
social wellness.
how did you arrive at that? Because of social wellness?
Yeah, we arrived at that through market feasibility, talking to customers, seeing how difficult it is to market an app that does personal CRM in a CRM space. The word or the character CRM, extremely expensive to market to. Salesforce dominates, $28 a click. So how do you compete against that?
Right.
So instead, we'll take a social wellness perspective.
A social wellness perspective. And how does that keyword perform?
Exactly, extremely well. We can own the whole category. So everybody's all about right now. Obviously, you have your physical wellness. You have and I can go through this too for the interview if you want, or if we're already in the interview.
I think we're in it. I think this is fascinating. We can do a whole spot on just branding or on like optimizing for your app. But
so I'm wearing this ring right now, and this ring is the Aura ring, and it gives me data every single day about how well I did at sleep last night. So to let me know how much deep sleep I had, how much REM sleep I had, how many times I woke up, what my latency was, all this cool stuff. And I can make decisions about how best to manage my sleep as a result of that. I got my Apple Watch on, right? And that tells me my heart rate, it tells me how many steps I get a day, it tells me all the really good data that allows me to have my physical health. So I've got my sleep health, I've got my physical health. I use MyFitnessPal to track my nutritional health, right? To keep track of all of that. But there's nothing that really allows us to keep track of our social health. And mental health is a big sort of component of social health. How well we relate to people, how many friends we have, how many interactions we have. That actually goes a lot to what our mental health is. So just like I want to keep track of my sleep and my steps and my nutrition, I also need to keep track of my social scores and my social data to know that I'm furthering that so that I can have a social wellness, so that I can have an overall well-being.
So is it going to give me a score for my own social wellness based upon the activity in the app?
Yeah, and you'll know how well you're doing with your relationships. You'll know how you're doing to advance those relationships with people, to know that it's been a while, I need to connect with Brandon, and so I'll go ahead and email him or text him, and there I'm increasing my social wellness score.
Why don't you give us the rundown then on what the product actually does? It's kind of a clear picture of just like, here's how this app helps you.
Yeah, and it all came about while me doing real estate in Arizona. And one of the things that a real estate agent really needs to be able to perform well at is nurturing relationships with their clients. They're buying the single biggest asset they'll ever own, the house, or they're selling one. And so you need, and it's a very emotional sale too. So you need to be really good at not only the transaction itself, but you need to be really good at how well you interact with the family or the individual that you're helping. And so you need to remember names, and you need to remember dates, and you need to remember the children's names and the dog's name and what kids what grades the kids are going into. All of this, and most would put that into a CRM. A customer relations management system.
People in a business setting would associate that with the function of a CRM.
Exactly right.
Okay.
But the problem is that a lot of real estate agents and other people like that in that kind of industry get a lot of their clients first from their personal networks. So every real estate agent, when they first start out, they're told, go to LinkedIn and post on LinkedIn that you're now a real estate agent. So that everybody knows. And go on Facebook and post to all your friends and family that you're a real estate agent so everybody knows. And so they know that, the real estate professionals know that a lot of your initial client base will come from church members, friends, hockey teammates, whatever it is, they come first from there. So where do those people go? Do you leave them in Facebook? Do you, as you're nurturing a relationship with one of those personal connections, do you take them into the CRM? And so I found there'd be this sort of disconnect between putting somebody who's either a lead or a prospect or a client in a CRM to where, how do I manage the relationships with all those people that may become business associates, or just I want to do well and right by them from a friendship perspective. So I was tired of having Facebook remind me the day of that it was a friend's birthday. And I felt like I was a failure, that I didn't acknowledge it properly, that I got on and wrote on the wall like everybody else did, like, happy birthday, here's 30 characters for you. And a different emoji that was unique, right, than everybody else's emoji. And I thought, had I known a couple of days before, I could have let them know, hey, how about I take you to lunch? Or I could have just did a nice handwritten card and send it to them. So to demonstrate to them that they were a true friend, that I acknowledged that relationship, and that I wanted to celebrate their special day. Just something as simple as a birthday. And so everything in social media has become very transactional, very sterile. It's superficial, and it's not allowing us to have these deep, meaningful connections. And it's all based on the person wanting to present what they want to present about themselves versus what I might know about you that I keep track of that makes you unique and special to me. And so that's what we tried to create, was this solution that would allow me to keep track of everybody that I have in my network, both personal and professional, and be able to serve them in the best way possible by remembering these important dates and by remembering these facts about them and different things that I can do to nurture that relationship. Because it's good for humanity, but it's also good for business too, and it returns a good ROI.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
In a business setting, a CRM will do things like let you track your phone calls, your meetings, your correspondence. So what does the personal social wellness product do? It
does the same thing. Okay. And that's where it gets interesting to wonder why that doesn't exist anywhere else. Because like you said, I want to have those transactions and those communications stored for the client. But if I in my church group or in my church that I go to, if I am, having interactions with people, I'll also want to be reminded of when I had my last interaction and maybe what that was, so that I can say, okay, well, instead of maybe asking the same questions over again, I could start off from where I left off. So in the church that I belong to, we do something called ministering, where we hopefully once a month, we try and reach out to somebody specifically and a family or a couple of families to make sure everything's right in their world, and that do they need anything. Do they have any a child that's going to be leaving off to college or coming back from college or going on a mission or doing the different things that families have happen to them. And where can I store that information? Well, my brain's not very big, so I need some place to put that. And I've tried to put it in my notes, and I've tried to put it in my calendar. And because, we're business people, to put that personal information into a calendar, our business calendar, starts getting just convoluted. Yeah. So I needed a separate space for that. And so that's what this allows us to do, is sort of maintain those communications with, or maintain those connection points with our personal network as well as our professional network, so that I can treat them in the same sort of rich, robust way as I would an actual business transaction too.
I love it. So walk us through now the timeline then. So like, how long have you been in the market, and then when did you start this, and how long did it take you to get to that point of going live?
Well, and from software development, there never is an end.
Right.
So a lot of people think that they can begin to create something and have it, and then it'll just in perpetuity make money, and all will be well and right in the world, and it'll be lollipops and gumdrops and rainbows everywhere.
Oh, that's what's supposed to happen.
You haven't gone there yet? You'll get there someday. Yeah, you'll get there someday. Right. So I'm not there yet either. But what we found is that, so I started in 2018 with the idea. Okay. And then of course, what a lot of app creators will do is they'll first sort of whiteboard it, or, do like a storyboard. And having a background in computers myself, I went ahead and grabbed Sketch, the software app, and I created the actual screens. and sort of thought through the interaction and how somebody might use that. No actual, functionality at that point, but it was more, okay, is this a good flow? Would this allow somebody to better maintain relationships? And, 3 months later, I handed it off to a company because I don't know how to develop mobile. I'm not a mobile developer. I'm another kind of developer, a desktop developer. And so I handed it to mobile experts, and they began writing it. The company that I hired to write it didn't do as good as they could have. And so finding the right company is paramount to having it be successful. And because they didn't do it right, we found ourselves a year into it having to completely rewrite it. The back end was not structured properly. The infrastructure was not in place, proper APIs, all that kind of good stuff, right? Didn't allow us to scale. Yeah, we got to the point where we had to rewrite it. And then it was, okay, well, now we have a viable product, and here we are in the year 2000, and we're releasing it, and we're getting traction, and people are liking it. But we started realizing, again, that our code wasn't as great as it could have been. And so at that point, and I've done different types of development over the years. I've done both outsourcing, sort of insourcing, where we hire our own developers, obviously, but then also in-source outsourcing, where we use a local company and we have a transaction with them, and then they're the ones who have the outsourced developers, but I'm only having to communicate in our time zone and with somebody in Utah, let's say. Sure. And so I've sort of ran the gamut, and they all have their pros and cons. There's all benefits to each of them. But where we're at today is now actually going back to the outsourcing, where we have another company who's expert at development do it, that I don't have the developers in-house anymore. It didn't work for us at the stage we were at. And the company is developing it so that it'll be even better than what it is right now. Right now we have a viable product. It's 15,000 users, 110 countries. That's great. It's doing pretty good. That's great. Right? But at every stage, as I started off this sort of part with, it's never done. And there's always something else that we want to add in, and always something else that'll help the user be able to benefit from. So we're always looking for those little features.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about how the code wasn't where you wanted it to be, how did that manifest itself? Like, what exactly happened that made you think, like, gosh, this product is not working the way
usability, or how the users, how we thought the users were going to use it, and then how the users actually used it were two different things. Mm-hmm. So we had one idea of, just through statistics, that the average person has about 250 contacts. And through our time, we saw that as they were importing their contacts, they did in fact have about 250 contacts on average. And we can manage that, and we can handle that, and that worked really well. And the speed of the application was such that was not an issue. But interestingly, the more we grew, the more we started having networking groups, and sort of power users want to use it and want to be able to share not only their connections, but an entire networking group's collection of connections.
So thousands of people for one.
Thousands of people. Yeah. And we wanted to be able to serve them. And so that was sort of a little bit of an inflection point, a turning point, where we realized, wait a minute, the speed of the app, the way that we're downloading, the way that we're presenting the data is not fast enough. And so that was another sort of part that we realized, based on user feedback, that we could improve, and then as such be able to reach a whole new market, because we hadn't originally thought about being able to serve networking groups. But then, because the networkers really see the importance of their network, personal professional networks, and the CRMs they use back at their companies are not geared toward that, they're looking for an alternative solution. And so not only can we serve the networking groups, we can also serve the people in the networking groups for their needs.
Mm-hmm. Performance is so tricky, because when you get to a place like that where the app is not fast enough, you kind of have to examine all of the architecture, right? And say, like, well, what is it that's happening on the database layer that's not working? Like, maybe we need to revisit that. What about what's going on in the client versus the back end? So like having to look at the entire architecture and say, how can we optimize this? That can be tricky.
Well, and also knowing that at that phase, you might be screaming right along, it might be running great, but anticipating scale. Yeah. And like, okay, it runs fine now, but go ahead and add another 100,000 users, what's going to happen? So having to account for that as well. Yeah, the growth.
So you talked about performance, and then like the code not being where you wanted it to be. What are some of the other challenges that you had bringing the app to market?
Just generally any app that is going to be released in the App Store is going to have the same sort of, I don't want to say issues, but challenges where I'm a new app in an App Store of 3 million apps. How do I gain attention and gain traction in there? And so it was trying to find the right sort of keywords that you can put into the materials, on the App Store to garner sort of attention and stuff. That was a big one. Obviously, marketing the app, as you know, you can simply pay the app stores to promote your app for you, and that is almost a direct return on how much you're willing to give versus how many new users you'll get. But of course, then the business aspect comes in. Well, okay, if we're going to spend $1.70 for a user, well, are we going to be able to recoup that? Are they going to upgrade to another, to our more premium platform and spend the money? Or are we just spending money to gain users for no purpose here? So one of the things that we had in our sort of values when we intended to release this and currently have as our values is we are not going to monetize the user's data. And that's why so many apps right now are free in the App Store, is because obviously the companies monetize the user's data. And that's not our intent. Our intent was to use the app as a means to get attention that they can then upgrade to a premium version, which is a web-based version, to do the more really robust stuff, see all their contacts on a map, see the Kanban board, other things like that. So it was sort of a little bit of a social give back, where we're going to create the create the app, because our web users are going to demand to be able to have their network on the road with them. So they need to have that. So you have to have the app just for that purpose alone. But then also for those people who don't want to upgrade, that's fine. We just like the critical mass that it becomes a household name, that maybe some of those people who download the app will then move to the premium version, and that we're just helping people be able to nurture their networks and love thy neighbor.
So those are two different use cases then, aren't they? Like if I am the mobile user, I'm doing it because I want to keep track of my friends, my family members, their birthdays, remember my last interaction with them. But if I go to your web product now, it's like, okay, I'm doing hardcore arbitrage on my contacts. Like, and I'm doing it probably with the intent to sell real estate or some other kind of engagement. Is that fair?
That's fair to say. I would say also that a lot of our users find themselves, even in the free product, where they're fine with the CRM they currently have because they're part of a big company and they use Salesforce or HubSpot or some ginormicon solution there. But that doesn't serve their needs for how they nurture their network. And yes, there are going to be those business connections that come into circles with them, but there will also be, again, the golf buddies, the hockey buddies, the church members, the friends, even family, right? I mean, I want to be able to keep track of what my aunts and my uncles and my nieces' likes and dislikes are, so that when it comes time to either give them a graduation present or a birthday present or acknowledge a special day. Like, for example, I'm left-handed. So August 13th is a big day because it's National Left-Handed Day.
Oh, I didn't know it.
Nobody does, except for lefties. But that's an awesome touch point opportunity for a lot of clients. So if you own a business and you're like looking for ways to be able to interact with your clientele and have a unique touch point, well, recognizing that one of your clients is a lefty and sending them something on August 13th, just something simple like, hey, National Left-Handed Day today, happy National Left-Handed Day, I recognize you were a lefty. They're going to be like, wow, hey, that's pretty cool. They remembered that.
So does Nouri have all of those events kind of built in to say like, hey,
we sort of help you understand what these events are. Yeah, because there are literally multiple per day that you could recognize about somebody. Some people are like massive dog lovers. So there's obviously puppy day and dog day and everything else like that. It's really trying to get you in the mindset of thinking about what are these ways that I can nurture relationships with my network.
Yeah. All the days other than May the 4th that actually need help promulgating.
Yes. Exactly. Right?
So I can be some kind of a business, if maybe like a mom and pop shop for whatever. I can be like an OBGYN or something like that. And I want to have an intensely personal touch point with all my customers. Therefore, I'm going to want to use your desktop version to manage all of my people, and that's something that my regular CRM or my regular my dental practice management system won't do.
Yeah. Okay. And then literally, I was in the ortho chair yesterday, and myself and the dental hygienist were talking about because we were looking at theirs. Yeah. The screen was right next to us, and we were looking at my account, and it was my birthday was there, and it was my name. But there was no other data about me, and they're gathering information. They're having conversations with me. They're learning about me, and those are ways for that one orthodontics practice to do like a little extra, reach out to me. Because think about it, they could, if they establish a better relationship with me, they could ask me to go out and give them a Google review. They could ask for referrals to friends and family. Yeah. They could do a bunch of things that could further their business and really solidify me as a client for their business.
But you'd only really be inclined to do that if you felt like they actually knew who you were and cared about who you were.
Exactly right.
But also, like even in just like networking today, I go to networking events and I talk to people that I've met before, but like we have the same conversation.
Because you don't
5 times in a row.
That's how it works.
Yeah, and I it's just hard to be able to say like, we've already had this conversation before. Like, you already asked me these things. But
everybody does that. They all experience that. I'm the worst at it. That's why I wanted to embark on writing this app. I need the tech to make me better, because you're right. When you meet somebody, you don't want to start over from where you left, from where you began. You want to start from where you left off. And so you and I have met each other. I want to start off from where we left off at that table that one day. Yeah. I don't want to be like, now tell me about, you're married, you're this, you're that.
Right, remind me.
Yeah, remind me again. That doesn't work. We need to be able to quickly, before I go into a meeting or before I know I'm going to be in an event where I might see certain people, I'll just do a quick 30-second scan to say, okay, oh, that was right. I remember that about him, or about this about her. And it blows people away. They think you've got the greatest memory ever. And they think you really are genuinely knowledgeable about them. And you are, because you are, right? Yeah. But you need a little something to help you out. And of course, our memories are such that we need associations to remember things. You can tell me all day long little nuggets of information, but if I don't take the effort to associate you to those items, I'm not going to remember them. By putting them into the system, by seeing them in the system, by seeing them next to your photo and stuff, those are the associations that solidify in our mind. So now we don't have to be reminded down the road that when I see you in the mall or out of context where I saw you last, I'll automatically be like, oh, hey, how's it going? That kind of thing. And be able to pick off from where we left off.
So how do I get my data into this?
So you can import. So contacts, pull them in. It's funny because most people, as a demonstration of how bad people are at nurturing relationships, if you were to look at one's contacts app on their phone, Android or iOS, the vast majority of people just have first name, some have last name, they'll have the phone number, and then only 25% of the time have an email address. There's rarely physical addresses, there's rarely notes, rarely is there a birthday, even though you can put birthdays and stuff and other dates in the contacts. People do not use the native app on their phone to maintain relationships. It's more of a Rolodex of, I need a phone number for a name. So that's fine, right. But before you call that person, wouldn't you want to remember a little bit more about that person? I mean, obviously not mom or Domino's, but Bill from such and such company that I'm about to call. I'd want a little more data right there for them. So anyway, you can import those contacts, but then as you can imagine, based on what I just say, you probably have to do a little bit of work to clean up, and also because and it's funny you say to clean up, the vast majority of people's contacts are extremely duplicated, and they don't know that.
I made the mistake of importing all my LinkedIn contacts into my phone years ago, and they're still there. Like people I don't even know these people, and they're in my contacts, and they get migrated from phone to phone to phone to phone.
Yep. Well, and we can help there, because one of the things we suggest people do is import all their contacts, use our tool to in fact remove duplicates, because our tool will do that.
Ooh,
I know. And I in fact paid for an app to do that before our solution.
Oh, okay.
So it's free. You can get it, remove all your duplicates, then you export it back out to your phone. So you wipe your phone, and now you have a clean set of data that you're good to go with.
Sweet.
So we can do that.
So do I see my notes on a contact record in my contacts app?
You can.
You can also
Yeah.
see kind of some additional data. So that's
If you export and you export to the notes field, yeah, you can bring that into the contacts app. Yeah.
via an export. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, do you have some cool integrations coming on your roadmap then, like to get like the dentist's data into?
Yeah. So we're able to do the contacts import. That's kind of an easy, low hanging fruit.
Right.
But we also have in the web version, we have it to where you can import, as you said, LinkedIn. We can import CSV and Excel and Android Direct. So there's ways to get the data in there. LinkedIn's interesting. So many people try and just build their LinkedIn profile with connections to sort of almost like, hey, look how many likes I have, or look how many followers I have, look how many network connections I have. The vast majority of people who use LinkedIn don't have any real, true, genuine relationships with these people. You could look at somebody's, I have 5,000 connections.
Yeah, I got 7,000.
Yeah. And you look at, and I could probably say of 500 of those, yeah, I know these people. The other people, they just connect because we're in the same industry or maybe have the same interests. But there's no sort of like advancement of our relationship there. It's very sort of, at its most surface level.
Right.
And so we're trying to convince people who do want to bring in their LinkedIn, bring in the people that you think you're going to have some sort of, relationship with.
I was hoping you were going to say, bring in your LinkedIn people and we will help you nourish a relationship with them in ways that are not creepy. Because
right, so it's DMs
kind of creepy,
and stuff.
right?
Yeah,
it's like,
it is.
why are you talking to me? Like, we don't even really know each other, but we're connected. Why are you connected?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and that's where if you were to know them a little bit better, you can use some of those items in their LinkedIn profile in other areas that you know. And you do need to have at least some point where you jump off and have a connection with somebody.
Yeah.
But, use the leverage of the connection. Like I just saw somebody this morning on LinkedIn that I'm trying to reach out to, and I saw that they went to Arizona State University. I also went to Arizona State University back in the day. They're in Arizona. I used to live in Arizona. I mean, there are multiple ways that we can find commonality that we can then use as an opportunity to say, hey, this isn't just some weirdo one-off DM that I'm hitting you up with and I want something from you already. It's more of, I'd like to connect with you and I thought these things were interesting that we both share in common. There was some other, one or two other items that he had. But then it's, okay, based on that, now you take it to the next level. Well, what do? Well, we have a nice, pleasant conversation and we start to get to know each other. Are you married? Where have you lived? All the typical standard things. And you pay attention when people are talking to you. So when they tell you these things, you're not in a weird sort of stalker way, start scribbling notes on people. But before you get off onto other things, you maybe put down on paper or put down into circles those things that were unique that you wanted to remember. And then the next time you speak, if you bring those up in conversation, that demonstrates to the individual, wow, this person was really paying attention. Yeah. And they are making an effort to get to know me. And that kind of stuff is extremely powerful. I've had people since using the app tell me, your memory is unbelievable. I cannot believe the kind of stuff you can remember. And I'm not remembering. I get the worst memory ever of anybody. And I'm just taking a quick second or two to remember a few things about them and then just bring them up in a sort of nonchalant way that it is genuine and shows them that, yeah, I do remember you and I remember the things you told me. Those were interesting.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
What a great product.
Thanks.
What advice would you give to the softwarepreneur who's trying to bring their own app to market? I mean, you've done this, and probably this isn't your first time.
No, yeah. So my last company was an analytics company. I bootstrapped that. It was kind of predated a lot of the mobile tech nowadays. I mean, we did have a mobile solution in the end. It was a public-facing crime map. So anybody could download the application on iOS or Android and see where the crime was around them. But that was, again, just sort of a very ancillary component of the company, which was more desktop, web server-based type of, high-end analytic software for public safety and defense. And so the lessons learned from that, the lessons learned so far through Zoohoo are many. I wish I would have learned to program in mobile, not because I want to write the app myself, because I think there are so many different aspects of mobile development that people don't understand that are critical to producing a very high quality commercial piece of software. For example, I'm a coder, but nowadays the UI UX in mobile is so critical to the success of an app that even I could be the greatest developer on the planet, but if I don't have a good sense of the user experience and the interface and how that helps inform and guide our user to learn how to use our app and to have a good experience, I'm going to miss the boat. So what I've learned is you need sort of the right people on the bus in the right seats though. So yeah, you need good developers who can write mobile really well, but you also need a very competent UI UX person who understands how people use apps and what they expect from apps, and obvious things that a UI UX person would think is obvious, but an end user, or said the other way, having buttons look a particular way, that it sort of give an impression of it does this. You don't go off the rails on that. You need to adhere to these standards, and they're standards for reasons because people expect it to work a particular way. So good developers, good UI UX, and then of course, as you know, you need a really strong back-end team because the mobile solution is probably going to communicate with a database. I mean, how would it not, right? You got to have some type of data that powers your app. Well, apps don't communicate directly with databases, they go through APIs. So you need a whole back-end person. So now you need developers, you need UI UX, you need back-end framework people and database people. That's a pretty solid team.
Yeah, it really is.
Back in my day, it was I'll just bust out a solution in code and I could be all of those. Because I would set up the database, I would set up and I'm talking way back in the day, desktop tools. It could write to like a Microsoft Access or would use an Excel spreadsheet or something, and we're talking way back in the day. But nowadays, yeah, you need all that. So people who would think, like I might have wrongly thought, well, I wish I could code this because I'll just do it myself and I don't need anybody else. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think you actually do need a team. Having said that, I think an understanding of, like I had, Sketch, and see like, okay, I see what's required and how much effort it is to build interfaces and to make this all work, and the appreciation of the art and the science in that, I think is important. I think it's important for people to understand coding in general so they can have proper expectations about how long things take to develop. Because sometimes you'll look at one thing and you'll think, well, that should only take a day or two. You should be able to bust that out. And that could be a couple weeks. Whereas another thing, you might think it takes a couple weeks and it actually is only going to take a day or two. So it just really, I think some minimum level of coding experience or understanding will help you be a better, I would say user of, but a better recipient of whomever is going to do your development for you. So you'll be able to communicate with them better and also not frustrate them. Because sometimes the person, if they don't understand what goes into development, particularly app development, they might get a little antsy, which translates to your developers, and then they're starting to feel too much pressure, and then they burn out, and the whole 9 yards. So I think also an understanding of how much apps cost. I think it was the year 2000, either Inc. or Fortune came out with an article of the average cost of an app from concept to actual commercialization in the App Store. And it was $250,000. And when I read that, I thought, there's no way. That's crazy. There's no way. I testify, yes, it costs that. If you, after all said and done, a couple years, getting something in production where you actually now have users and things are rocking and rolling, yeah, you're probably easily $250,000 into it. So I don't think people will really appreciate the cost of it. So if you can get it for less than that, well, consider yourself lucky. You're ahead of the game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think people sometimes they don't necessarily appreciate the business case around that too. Like if you're going to spend this much money on an app, you need to have a plan to like make money with it. Like it's got to pay for itself. It's like any other investment. So
I love that point because I did an exercise with my team yesterday because we were trying to understand the monetization of our app. Because again, the app was a means to the end to get them to purchase the web version for their business, for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small businesses. But yet we still want to, as best we can, monetize the app. Well, how do we do that? I looked on my phone, and of the hundreds of apps that I have on my phone, I think I pay for 2 or 3 apps. And one's like a Facetune, and another's like a podcast, but I could actually get that through the web, and I think I even paid for it through the web. And my other 2 people that I was talking to, not one app did they pay for. And so you have to think, well, how are you, if you're embarking upon this path of creating an app, how are you going to monetize that, and are you going to charge for it? Are you going to market the data? Are you going to market to them? How's it going to work?
So you really, is it all up front versus is this like a monthly thing?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to operate an app over an extended period of time, like people are going to use it. They're going to expect to be able to use it, and that costs you money to run that app. So.
Exactly right. I mean, the data alone, just to keep the app running. You have the database costs, and as you grow, of course, those increase. You have the developers costs, because it'll always be new iOS and Android versions that you need to adhere to, and new sort of privacies that you need to make sure your app is accommodating. And if you're not constantly doing that, that can you better be paying for that, because somebody's going to pay for that, and it's going to be you. You better hope you to recoup that, because it's just going to get exponentially more expensive.
Right. Mm-hmm. Do you have like a last question? Do you have like a personal mantra or a motto that's helped you get this far?
I actually don't. I probably have a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. I think what I've seen, at least with my own experiences, but other people who have embarked upon creating companies, creating apps or solutions or whatever they're doing, is they give up too early. I don't think people appreciate how hard it is to actually grow a business. That you're not going to be the next Facebook in 6 months. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. And it takes a lot of perseverance, and it takes a lot of patience. And you're going to experience massive setbacks where at each point you're going to want to quit. And I think the people who are successful don't quit. No matter how many people tell them your app is stupid, it's a horrible idea, you'll never monetize this, it's never going to amount to anything, nobody likes your crummy, solution. If you believe in it, keep pushing forward. And it may not happen in a year, it may not happen in 2 years, but if you keep at it and you believe in it enough, it hopefully will eventually start taking hold, and people will catch on. Sometimes there are ideas that are too ahead of their time and it's not yet ready yet. Others, it's a great idea, but it's the wrong sort of UI UX, and so people can't quite understand how to use it. But if you think you got a good idea, it is going to take a long time to bring that to fruition. And I think just the stick-to-itness would be something that I would try and impart to a new entrepreneur who's wanting to start a business. That I know you want to be a multimillionaire by the end of 2021, and we all do, but just be patient. If you keep working hard, it'll pay off. And not 40 hours a week where you get off on Saturday and Sunday. My first company, I was probably 60 to 70 hours a week. There was no day off, there was no holidays, and it was all just grinding to get it done. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, definitely sounds familiar. Thank you so much for coming and sharing about your journey, and I'm excited for people to start using your app.
Thank you.
Great.
Circles.
More people.
Yes,
yeah.
Excellent.
Circles
Nouri. Your CRM. All right, Nouri, the new app.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great, super. Well,
Thanks
again.
You're welcome.